Greetings, Otaku Faithful. Thanks for joining me again this week. Once again, it's Larry Williams, OAW Commander-in-Chief, and I'm here to bring you all yet again another Legends of Tomorrow episode review right here on Otaku Assemble! Weekly, and as always, here to bring you the latest in this week's Legends of Tomorrow episode review. And this is my review of Season 1, Episode 12, entitled Last Refuge. Now, general thoughts on this week's episode. I gotta say, I didn't think they'd be able to pull it off, but we actually did get a good episode this week. I'm actually pleasantly surprised that we got a good episode this week. Now, I'll say this, with the exception of the Kendra-Ray relationship bit, because once again, as I've stated before, it doesn't work, it hasn't worked, it's not going to work. With the exception of that, and for the record, this is the last time I'm talking about that on camera. I am not going to discuss the Kendra-Ray relationship in another single Legends of Tomorrow review. This is the last time I'm going to mention it, and I'm done with it from here on out. So, with the exception of that, everything else in the episode worked really well, I think. So, number one, the Pilgrim. Once again, this was another thing I thought, hey, I like the idea. We have a Terminator-esque antagonist for this episode. The whole idea that she goes back in time and she targets people when they're at their most vulnerable. That whole thing, I'm like, I like that idea. Don't know if they'll pull it off. They actually did. I like the Pilgrim. And while at first I was a little hesitant to the idea that she had to work within the confines of the Omega Protocol, meaning that she couldn't act in a way that would create a huge change to the timeline. But then even when she does decide to go after some of the members' younger selves, like, it made sense when she went after them, except for two occasions. Only on two occasions I thought the year was right, but the actual time of it all was sort of suspect. And this is what I'm talking about. Okay, so the decision to go after Sarah in 2007, that was the best time to do so. Why? Because that's the same year she gets on the ship with Oliver, and that's the year that the accident happens. That's the year that she goes missing. And seeing as how everyone thought she was dead to begin with, yeah, if she would have taken her out then, like, let's say, like, if she would take her out on the actual ship before the accident occurs, that would have been perfect timing. The other one was Ray. She attacked Ray in 2014, which would have been last season of Arrow. But why not just wait until 2015 after the accident at Palmer Tech, when everyone thinks that Ray is dead? Take him out then so that it would seem like nothing would have changed. And yeah, the only thing that would have been rewritten as far as the timeline is concerned is the events that occurred on Arrow this season when Ray came back. So, like I said, the years that she decided to go after those two I thought were perfect ideas, but the moment in time I thought could have been better done. But all in all, I do like the Pilgrim, and like I said, even her working within that Omega Protocol, it does still make sense that you would go and remove the target at the period where they would be the least likely to affect the timeline. So that sort of made sense. Another thing I thought was really good about the episode was the fact that this was another episode where we got a good bit of Rip's backstory. Rip is still, as Snart pointed out, he is still the one character on the team we know the least about. And so the fact that we got a nugget of Rip's past in this episode, I thought that was really good. Rip's whole plan for doing the exchange with the Pilgrim, I thought that actually made a lot of sense. The fact that he would use himself, his younger self, sort of as the linchpin for that plan, sort of like the ace in the hole, if you will, because he knew how his younger self would react to her. That I thought made sense, and that was actually kind of smart. Then the other thing, okay, do you all remember couple of episodes ago where I mentioned, this whole sort of mixed reform, if you will, and him getting back on board with the rest of the team? How I said I thought it was too abrupt. I thought that, hey, just this, that being solved with a fist fight with him and Snart, I thought that was too soon to fully resolve the issues that Mick had with the team and vice versa. here's the thing. This episode would have been the perfect opportunity for that reform to take place. Having Mick and those exchanges with his younger self, where we get some of his backstory, and then how his character sort of turns over a new leaf, or at least makes a much needed attitude adjustment. This would have been the perfect time to be like, okay, yeah, now Mick's sort of seeing the error of his ways. You know, he's sort of come around a little bit, and now we could totally see him being part of the team once again. This should have been the episode when that happened. And it would have been very easy, because all they would have had to do was just sort of drag out the whole "is Mick still on board with us" through last week's episode, and then have that resolved in this week's episode. Like I said, what we got, I appreciated it, but if they would have used that, if they would have used this moment for that objective, they would have hit it out the park. They would have hit it out the park. And so finally, the last thing I want to comment on is what we saw with Jax this week. That, oh my goodness, Jax meeting his dad for the first time. That whole thing I thought was done so well, and it was highly appreciated, especially since, and yes, I do have to bring this up because it is relevant, the fact that Jax is an African-American character, and the fact that we are dealing with the main characters, you know, in the past, their younger selves, and that Jax is the one that, you know, besides his mom, he didn't have anybody else. So the fact that they would use his dad in this episode, I thought was a good choice. But also the idea that, oh, Jax never knew his dad, not because he was an absentee deadbeat dad, which is so commonly reinforced in modern media. That horrific stereotype is so commonly used. The fact that they decided not to take that route, that they made his dad somewhat of a war hero, you know, the fact that he died in service, and so this is him meeting his dad, you know, before that happens. That I thought was really well done, and like I said, it is important. It is important, especially for African-American viewers, especially for young African-American viewers of this show, because it's so it paints a different picture, and it paints one that's less bleak, that's less cynical, that isn't so written with all the negative stereotypes that are attached to the African-American community. So I actually thought that was probably one of the best bits of this episode. That and the material with Mick, I thought were the two best things about this episode. But other than that, like I said, good episode, except for the whole Ray and Kendra bit, because I'm not talking about that anymore. So other than that, everything I thought good episode, and it looks like now we are finally moving towards the climax of the season, because now they are going to the future. They are going to the time period where Savage is at the height of his power. Now, I do have to question, okay, why are we going to, I mean, I figured we would always go to that future because we would need to see it. We've heard enough about it. Now it's time for us to actually see it. I do question why save that for the end, the reasonings for doing so, this, that, and the other. They even mention it in the episode when Stein asks Rip about, hey, I thought it was dangerous going to that time period. We'll just kind of have to wait and see how this whole thing unfolds. But I do agree to the idea that no, the climax has to happen at that time. That's Rip's time period, that's Savage's time period. We have to bring this thing full circle. We have to bring the conclusion, the resolution of the conflict to where it began. We have to come back to that point. So I'm looking forward to seeing where this whole thing is going to lead in next week's episode. So that's going to conclude my Legends of Tomorrow episode review. I want to thank you all for joining me again this week. In the comments below, please feel free to share your thoughts on this week's episode and let me know what some of you guys' predictions and expectations for next week's episode are. If you like this video, please thumb it up, share it with other fans of the series and people you think would enjoy my review. And if you have yet to do so, subscribe to the OAW YouTube channel. Annotation is above head. So stay tuned tomorrow, my Vikings season 4 mid-season finale review. That'll be up tomorrow. Currently, I'm working on a potential upload for Saturday. I'll keep you all posted as that continues to develop. There won't be a top 5 this Saturday. There won't be one this upcoming Saturday because I just put one out last night. And I want to give enough time for people to go ahead and leave suggestions and vote, for next week's topic. So I won't put up a top 5 this weekend. Top 5 will be up. We'll be back next weekend. And if you have yet to do so, please feel free, leave suggestions and thumb up topics for next week's top 5. I'll go ahead and annotate that video right here. And then, of course, by Sunday, you guys will be getting my Hunter x Hunter episode 2 review. And with that being said, this has been Larry Williams, OAW Commander-in-Chief, signing off. And until next time, peace.